Porn, gambling, likes, sugar, more likes, dopamine, 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 spikes. In a world of declining mental health and overconsumption of high stimuli activities, Anna Lembke, an addiction psychiatrist at Stanford University, thinks she has found a solution. By working with severe addicts of all possible varieties throughout her life and endless research, the conclusions she has drawn is well grounded in reality and has a hopeful touch to them. They are mainly centered around the molecule dopamine, which is the main driver of motivation and craving. I will summarize some of these patient encounters here and what we can learn from them. This is Detox Dan presenting the top 5 takeaways of Anna Lembke's Dopamine Nation. Takeaway number 1. The pain-pleasure balance. Anna describes the pain-pleasure balance as a scale with the fulcrum in the center, somewhere in our brains. When nothing is on the scale, it's leveled with the ground. When we experienced easy access pleasure through, for example, gaming, snacks, social media, porn, or shopping, to name a few, dopamine is released in our reward pathway and the balance tips to the side of pleasure. The more pleasure we feel, the faster it tips. Now, here's the key feature about the balance. It wants to remain in equilibrium, leveled with the ground. So, every time the scale has been tipped for too long, a powerful self-regulating mechanism kicks in to bring it back to normal. Anna visualizes this with a pack of small gremlins, starting to hop on the other side of the balance to counteract the weight of the pleasure side. They represent the work of homeostasis, the tendency that living systems wants to remain in equilibrium. The result being that after we experience X amount of time tips towards pleasure, the gremlins make sure we spend around the same amount of time tips towards pain. This might sound like bad news initially, but there are 2 ways to work with the balance instead of against it. Takeaway number 2. Dopamine fasting. Sophie met Anna seeking help for anxiety and depression. Her daily schedule consisted of a constant flow of Instagram, music, YouTube, and podcasts, with little to no breaks. To Anna's idea of trying to at least go to school every day unplugged, she responded in the classical way, "Why would I do that? It is so boring." Boredom has a very negative label to it in this day and age, almost as if we are failing at life if we are bored. But boredom is a great chance to learn more about yourself and ask the bigger questions that most of us seem so afraid of these days. Boredom also starves the gremlins on the pain side to death, which is a major win. I might honestly start printing shirts with "Make boredom cool again." If you aren't able to enjoy the simple things in life, such as a walk in the forest, a cup of tea with a friend, or learning a new subject, that should be a wake-up call that our dopamine baseline is too elevated. The dopamine fast is a protocol structured to cure that. The idea is to abstain from any high stimuli activities for 4 weeks. This might include social media, fast food and snacks, porn or compulsive sex, gaming, gambling, alcohol or stronger drugs, Netflix and movies, energy drinks, etc. This is enough time to reset the reward circuits in our brains and create new, healthier reward pathways. If quitting all of them doesn't seem manageable to you, you can start with just the one that you conclude currently makes the most harm. When we abstain from these high reward, no discomfort pleasures, we, as I mentioned above, bore the gremlins on the pain side to the point where they go home. Or die. It usually takes about 2 weeks for a tipping point to occur, meaning you will probably feel worse during this period. That is the main reason why it is so hard and people quit before reaping the benefits. But there are ways to make this easier, as we will see in later takeaways. After about 4 weeks, we will experience a restored baseline in the pain-pleasure balance again, and life will almost certainly feel more vibrant than before. You are now on the other side of a very dark tunnel, shining with light. Sophie tried the experiment. It was hard at first, but then I got used to it and even kind of liked it. I started noticing the trees. Takeaway number 3. Self-binding. Finally, our main protagonist of the story, Jacob, has arrived. He was a skilled engineer and a sex addict. This might not sound like a particularly dangerous combination at first, but just wait and see. By connecting a metal rod to a record player, attached a metal coil on the other end of the rod and wrapped that coil in some soft cloth, he had created himself a masturbation machine due to the up and down motion of the coil. Don't get any ideas, by the way. The record player had different speeds, and he managed to control them so that he could keep himself on the edge of orgasm for hours. Realizing that spending most of his days attached to a masturbation machine wasn't such a great idea, after getting divorced and almost losing his job, etc., he decided to quit. When we are in open war with an addiction, a helpful strategy is to try and put barriers between ourselves and the addiction. This Anna calls self-binding, and is put in 3 categories: physical, chronological, and categorical self-binding. He tried the first category, physical self-binding. Common ways to use this strategy is to, for example, put the TV away in a wardrobe after usage, ban yourself from certain websites, put your phone in a lock with a timer on, or never bring snacks into your own house. The idea is to at least create friction between you and the bad habit. Research showed that so much of addictive usage is simply due to easy access. For Jacob, this meant throwing away the machine in the trash. Usually that didn't last very long, as he just went and picked it up a day later anyways. When he started to throw it in the garbage bin that he knew would get removed, it worked a little bit better, but eventually he would just always buy a new set of the machine parts anyways. The second form of self-binding is chronological. This means putting time between you and the compulsive behavior. We can say, for example, that we will only consume after 7 p.m., only on weekends, only on holidays, or only after we have completed the deadline on our very important project. Rats that have access to cocaine all the time will quickly start to consume more and more, while rats who only has access for an hour a day keep the usage steady even over longer periods of time. The last form of self-binding is categorical self-binding, which means dividing dopamine-heavy activities into subgroups. The idea is to restrict us from any activity that triggers us to crave the thing we're trying to avoid. Diets usually is a form of categorical self-binding, where you could do a keto diet for the purpose to just avoid high sugary foods. For Jacob, this meant covering his body up while showering, no more women volleyball games, or news articles about strippers. In the end, life turned out great for Jacob, and after decades of battling his addiction, he finally got it under control. Takeaway number 4: the pursuit of pain. Michael was a rich young Silicon Valley businessman working in real estate. He was also incredibly charming, handsome, and married to the woman he loved. His only Achilles heel was cocaine. Confident that he could keep it on a recreational level, he didn't mind it whatsoever at first. But when things got out of hand and his wife told him it's me or the drugs, he knew he had to quit. And then he asked himself, now what? He started distracting himself with tennis lessons, but always had terrible sweats afterwards. His trainer told him that maybe he should try to shower cold instead of warm. And after that, there was no going back for Michael. He had found his substitute. He went on to create advanced baths with perfect circulating motions to keep the water cooled, and even got friends and family to occasionally join him. He explains the high of intermittent cold exposure as how he remembers ecstasy, feeling incredible for hours. When we voluntarily expose ourselves to cold temperatures, we get up to 250% increase in dopamine, which is the same potency as cocaine. The difference is that afterwards, the dopamine doesn't dip below baseline, but declines slowly and steady until we are back to normal. This dopamine spike is the gremlins hopping on the pleasure side of the balance, making us feel great. Similar effects are shown in exercise and intermittent fasting, where you tolerate a moderate amount of pain for a restricted amount of time, and in reward, the gremlins make sure you feel darn good afterwards. This voluntary pursuit of pain might be tough to manage at first, but once the habit is formed, the benefits start to outweigh the pain. Other ways to push the pain side of the balance, that are more indirect, is to, for example, tolerate some social discomfort like talking to strangers, or working hard on a project or business that you would like to see blossom. The opportunities are endless. Takeaway number 5. M stands for mindfulness. Anna presents an acronym for dopamine that will help us get perspective and push through the 4-week period of the dopamine fast. Every letter serving us in one way or another to stay on the path. I will zoom in on the M for mindfulness here. The main idea of the M in mindfulness is to use craving and pain as an opportunity to wake up and become more conscious. A state of alertness and curiosity has no negativity attached to it, but rather is a very light state of being. Delilah was sent to Anna by her parents for smoking too much weed. When Delilah finally decided she was going to try to quit, she had desperately hoped for some substitute medicine to help her deal with the withdrawals. To her horror, Anna responded with, There's nothing I can give you to take the pain away. What I'm asking you to do is to tolerate the pain. Delilah didn't look very happy. Yeah, I know. But it's also an opportunity. A chance for you to observe yourself as separate from your thoughts, emotions, and sensations, including pain. This practice is sometimes called mindfulness. The idea, that is to observe one's mind and thoughts without judgment, is trickier than it sounds. Anyone who has tried this knows that the brain wanders off and you most likely lose focus within the first 30 seconds. Getting used to this practice, however, is essential once we stop distracting ourselves with high dopamine substances, as strange and painful thoughts will no doubt arise. Mindfulness and meditation have shown to strengthen the prefrontal cortex, which is the main part of the brain that makes strategic decisions instead of compulsive ones. So, buckle up your inner Buddha. You will need him. Namaste. That was it for the top 5 takeaways of Anna Lembke's Dopamine Nation. Make sure to hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you next time.